John Whittle. Joining, I didn't expect to get that text from you right before I welcomed you on the air, but John joining us here at 11:27. Hey, buddy.
Hey, well, I'm not CC'd on this one.
No,
No,
it's the inside. GC is
it
just
was
for the.
it was
You're
about a
keeping
commercial.
things from me. I know. I'm a little volatile today. So
I just I I just John. A lot
I
of
just
people
assume
don't.
it's
I don't
about me.
realize.
Will.
It was about one of the. It was about one of the advertisers.
Yeah.
Advertisements.
I
Well,
have an
I mean, I
idea.
guess-
I have an idea what that was about. So that's okay. I'll leave it to you folks.
I mean, I guess I could just say it. I mean, it would be a free promo for Campbell, right? I mean, John just saying he knew somebody who had a big crush on Michael Campbell. So that's all he's saying.
That's a big. I should have thought about
She,
the sport.
she probably still does, but that's fine.
I'll leave it to you baseball fellas to
Well,
hash
I
that
just
out.
I thought you were easily gonna say like let's I want to talk about this or something, and that just caught me off guard. So and I've been kind of sick. I caught a whatever this crap is, literally Saturday, and so I've been trying not to like laugh a whole lot because my throat's been kind of hurting. But so I appreciate that, John. Thanks. Well, they got beat. So from your vantage point, what'd you see on Saturday?
I thought that, and I think JC said this too. I may be wrong. You can correct me. I kind of thought this game would be a little bit lower scoring than, maybe the line would indicate, and maybe the general thought process would indicate. I kind of liked, what South Carolina had been doing on the defensive side of the ball, and to not allow a touchdown was surprising to me. For it to be more of a defensive battle, didn't really take me off guard. But I certainly thought South Carolina would be able to be more productive offensively. And the first play of the game was certainly a good one. 18 yards to Leggett, and then I thought there were yards there on that little swing pass. Backward pass, which I thought it was backwards. I thought it was lateral. And, like that ball, I mean, you throw that ball to Leggett, that was picked off every time. You just throw it better. I mean, I thought there were yards out there. I thought there were things open. And then all of a sudden there just weren't to go from, that touchdown drive in the first quarter to, what the next 6 or 7 possessions looked like. Which yielded a total of single-digit yards, or maybe it was 1 yard. I think it was 1 yard over the next either 6 or 7 possessions in total. It's just mind-boggling to me, absolutely mind-boggling. And I know Clemson has a good defense, but they don't have a great defense this year. Certainly nothing like what we've seen out of them. Yeah, they've got a couple pretty good linebackers, and their defensive line plays hard, but they've given up yards and scores all year. And South Carolina just couldn't figure it out. And that's what was most disappointing, to have one of your best, probably your most talented quarterback ever, and second best receiving season ever in terms of yards receiving. Have those guys go out like that, really, really disappointing.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, no question, John. I mean, you've heard this theory already, and we've already hit it here. If you would have told us that the Tigers wouldn't score an offensive touchdown Saturday night, well, Carolina won the game. But that didn't happen. And so it really, anything that happened doesn't matter anymore as far as having a conversation about it. What the conversation should be centered around is what are they going to do to fix the things that they need to fix. If I asked you, what is priority number one in the offseason? What is it in your mind?
Well, is fixing both lines of scrimmages for me. And, those are obviously big deals. With the defensive line, I mean, you've got a nice base there. You can get everybody back. I mean, there were some flashes from some guys, and I thought Tonka Hemingway had a fairly good back half of the season. I thought TJ Sanders had a really good season overall. Alex Huntley was okay. But that group as a whole just isn't nearly good enough. And there didn't seem to be any guys who are like on the cusp of doing something great. It just nothing really seemed to come together, especially at that edge position. So you've got to upgrade talent tremendously there. I mean, offensive line. I think you're headed in the right direction in terms of your recruiting and some of the young guys already on campus, but you got to keep them improving and get those guys healthy. I mean, I think injuries derailed that group as much as anything. We all thought coming into the year that you had some older experienced guys who you thought you could manage your way through for a bit and perform well enough. And there were some some younger guys who were more talented, and you could kind of grow them up and throw them in when they were ready. Well, the old guys didn't perform very well. Some guys got hurt. You had to throw some freshmen in before they were ready. And it was just a recipe for disaster there. But I think in general, in terms of personnel, you're going in the right direction from that standpoint. You just got to keep coaching them up and get them healthy. From the defensive line standpoint, I don't know that the direction from a personnel standpoint is anywhere close to where you need it to be, and if it's going in the right direction, because there's nobody really in the recruiting classes right now that you can speak of, that you can point to. From an interior standpoint, you've got some guys on the edge who you like, but from an interior standpoint, I mean, that's a struggle right there. I mean, you've got to find some guys in the portal. So, addressing both lines of scrimmages should be priority 1A.
I 100% agree with that. I want to lump JC into this because he's the expert on recruiting, and let you two kind of hash it out. I'm just going to tee it up and step to the side, though. We know what's committed from a high school standpoint on the offensive line, and you can make the argument they've got a top probably 2 or 3 offensive line class in the country right now, maybe the top tackle class, that's for sure. But so a couple of things here. JC, will defensive line? I mean, I know, like I read what you said this when we talk about this all the time, but if you had to pick one position that is just going to absolutely get the bulk of the priority to kind of rejuvenate it, would it be defensive line? That's part A of this question. And B, is it fair to say that signing offensive linemen out of the transfer portal is probably the most difficult position to lure really good talent from?
I think so. I think D tackle to a certain extent is too, and D end is really hard. Carolina was pretty fortunate to get Jordan Strawn, and I know he didn't have his best year, but coming back from that type of knee injury, he certainly was okay and did have a really good game against Kentucky and made a difference. Edge has been kind of an issue for a while. I do think there's help on the way with Dylan Stewart, hopefully Cam Fountain. Desmond Umeazulu is a young player that's got a lot of promise.
No doubt.
You've got you could get Montague Rames back out of junior college, depending. So you got some light at the end of the tunnel there to tackle. No, and part of it's because the top 5-6 guys on the board all went to Georgia. I mean, I don't know how many D tackles they're planning on taking down there, but they took everybody Carolina liked and was in good position for. Carolina finished second on most of those guys, and that's hard. And then the second part of it is Travian Robertson got here like in June, and recruiting nowadays, man, that's late because of the early signing period. And it's tough to go establish relationships, and it's tough to get out there and kind of find guys and things like that. So they're going to have to go in hard in the portal, off D tackle. Now, last year they were in on a couple. And you do have, I'm going to back up. You do have guys coming back. I mean, Boogie could come back, technically. Taka could come back, technically. TJ Sanders will be back, hopefully. But you need some guys that
you need some butt.
You need some guys,
big old butt up
big
there.
Old guys. And and if you're going to stick with a 3-3-5, you need a nose, a big nose. Now, when I talked about when Charlie Strong was here, he didn't really have the big 330-pound guy like you see at Alabama or Georgia in the middle. I think Cleveland Pickney was the nose tackle, Langston Moore, those guys. And they were good in athletics, so it can be done. But man, it's so much more helpful when you got a guy inside that draws double teams every single play, like a monster. And maybe this kid from Bamberg, this junior college, that's 6'7", 330, whatever, maybe he can do it. I don't know. But that's got to be a point of emphasis. I think receiver and running back on offense have to be a point of emphasis, and all that good stuff. And just want to comment on another asinine comment. Oh, the O-line coach loves FCS players. Well, the one FCS player that started most of the year is probably one of your best offensive linemen. And then, no, I think he loves 4- and 5-star guys too, because that's what he's recruiting. So sorry to PP on your parade there, man, but just another wrong comment. But look, I think that's the deal there. I think you got to, you got to kind of get some beef on the inside, John. And Edge may have to be young for a while. If you can find a guy, great. But I don't know. Those guys are pretty hard to go get. Don't you think, John?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody wants more pass rush. Everybody needs more linemen, and there's schools out there who will pay big money for them. So it's difficult to get. I mean, you losing Gilbert Edmond last year was I think a surprise to pretty much everybody. And he goes to Florida State, and they obviously have a great NIL program going on down there. And you gotta hold on to your guys that you think can be good, like a Desmond Umeozulu or whoever else, because anybody who goes into the portal from that defensive line position is gonna get snapped up.
Yeah, John, I made the comment earlier about the 2014 team. You covered that team. The offense was statistically the best ever do it at South Carolina. By the end of the year, there was a 2-star running back named Brandon Wilds, and the whole year there was a 2-star quarterback named Dylan Thompson. And that team just ran out there and put up a bunch of points. They just couldn't stop anybody on defense. And so, I'm one of those guys that believes everything will fall into place when you're just really good up front. And I just don't see, like, they're going to sign running backs. They might not be the caliber of running backs that fans want to see or whatever it is, but nobody even talked when Brandon Wilds got signed here and Dylan Thompson. Nobody even talked about those guys, and they ended up being integral parts of the greatest offense we've ever seen because they could block up front. So I'm just one of those guys that I'm just firmly of the belief that if you get it fixed up there, the rest of it can fall into place, especially when you got a good quarterback like they've got coming next year in Lenore Sellers.
Yeah, and Sellers will be helpful in terms of his mobility, right? Like, you don't have to be as perfect with Sellers as your quarterback as you did a Dylan Thompson. So, these guys we're talking about, a lot of these guys are still younger. Your Tree Babalade, Javon Ball, Marquis Anderson, the freshmen who will be coming in, they're all still young. Hopefully you can bring Vershawn Lee back, who I thought had a really good season. I say really good. I'm not sure anybody had a really good season when the offensive line performs the way that it did. He had a good season overall, I thought. But your quarterback next year is going to have to be able to move a little bit because it's not going to be perfect next year. It's going to be a little bit better, but it's not going to be perfect next year. It's going in the right direction, I feel like. So, having some mobility at quarterback will be helpful. But you're right, a good offensive line masks those or can elevate good talent like a Dylan Thompson and a Brandon Wild. So I'm with you 100% on your point.
Well, what do you think the impact of the injury is, John? I mean, when we come back next year, if let's say you maintain what you have and you finally get these injured guys back on the field, are we going to be like, oh, wow, this is what they were talking about? I mean, is that the kind of talent that we were lacking this year due to injury?
Well, some of it maybe a little bit. I think it was more the revolving door and not having the continuity up front than some of the actual injuries. I mean, obviously you lose Jalen Nichols in the spring, but you had time to kind of plan around that one. You lose Case and Henry in the fourth snap of the season, I guess. But I'm not I'm not sold that he's the tackle of the future. To be honest, that's just me, and I may be really wrong. JC would have better insight than I would, but he's been injured since he got here, and when you're injured from basically the entire time you're here, for 2 years, it's hard to count on the guy. And that guy's got more braces and pads on him than he's got weight. So I'm not sold on that injury necessarily derailing South Carolina from an offensive line standpoint. I think when you have that many injuries, you have that much rotation going on, you got that many guys moving positions over the course of the year, I think that hurts as much as anything, just having such little continuity there. That was the biggest issue for me in terms of injury. I think Marquis Anderson would have been playing a lot, and obviously Jalen Nichols. So I'm not saying the injuries weren't bad individually, but I think the totality of it hurt the continuity more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, just like against Florida, they finally found probably the best game the O-line played was Florida. And they finally find something with Lee out at tackle, and then boom, he gets hurt and is out for 3 weeks. I mean, it was unbelievable. I'm not making excuses because once they got the for the last 4 games, they started the same 5, and they still couldn't get a push in the run game or whatever. I'll say this too, though, I'm not convinced all those guys up front were playing at 100%. In fact, I know they probably were not. A lot of them.
I know 100%. 3 of them weren't.
Yeah,
but they were playing. But I know 3 of them weren't.
That's true. I mean, I did that. And Johnny Rambo, nobody said, we're not sitting there saying nobody should get fired. I never said anything about that. Neither did JB.
No, I've never said that.
Insane.
That's coming up here in just a second. I too. I mean, look, they lost, and that at the end of the day, that's the point of the conversation. They got beat. Does anybody know when the last time Clemson was held without an offensive touchdown was? As I haven't looked for it, but I'm going to check if nobody comes up with that answer before I do. That's got to have been years, right, guys? I mean, like years. They always score.
So, I can't think of anything offhand, but I would imagine it's been quite a while.
Oh, I would imagine
Clemson scoring an offensive touchdown. So yeah, I don't.
Lifetime. I couldn't even begin to come up with how long that's. I mean, that just goes to show you, like. I know that that's not that elite Tigers offense we've been seeing mostly over the last, 13 or 14 years, but they can score.
2014, sorry to interject there. 2014 at Louisville was the last time Clemson did not score an offensive touchdown.
Okay, so it's been 10 seasons since that happened. So that's a major hat tip to the Gamecock defense. John, Shane, I think if we figured out anything about Shane Beamer since he's been here, Shane Beamer works on Shane Beamer's timeline. Like it, love it, whatever, it doesn't matter. And that's how he works when it comes to making personnel decisions, either in the locker room, from a team standpoint, or on the coaching staff. What do you anticipate the timeline looking, or what do you anticipate the next couple of weeks looking like? I don't know it's not fair to ask you if you anticipate any changes or not. So I'm not doing that, but do you think that those things are at least being considered, and with the portal opening and early signing period coming up, based on what we know about Shane Beamer, what are we looking at here with this football program over the next, 14, 21 days or so?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. I certainly think that that he's considering making some changes. The timing of it all is probably a little bit on a case-by-case basis. All right, who are you trying to hire in place of somebody else, and when can you get that coach? If it's a coach on a staff that's been fired or somebody who is ready to move on and you can get it done quickly, then maybe you go ahead and do it. Some of these coaches maybe don't want to move before signing day from their own place. There's some things to weigh. You can't always necessarily convince a guy to come in immediately. And some of these teams still have conference championship games, and some want to be a part of signing day or their bowl game or what have you. and it may just the timing may not be quite to where you want, quite to where it happens quickly or immediately. So I'm certain that Shane is evaluating some things over there. I like you said, he moves very methodically. So I would be a little bit surprised if anything happened in the very immediate future.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You agree
I'm
with that,
with you
JC?
there.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you got two schools with new head coaches, both at A&M and at Mississippi State. So you do wonder if there, when movement starts, it could, as we all know, it could be a trickle down effect. So you might have coaches moving around, not because you fired them, but because they're moving around for other,
Right.
got other things going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be
I mean,
a
that's
lot.
absolutely a fair point. That's
Yeah.
absolutely a fair point too. There's going to be guys retained, guys looking for jobs, and some folks who are just ready to move.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know what's going to happen, but you're right. Shane's going to move on his own timeline. Is that my preference? No. I would have liked to have seen some heads roll today. I'm not going to get into who, but because that kind of takes the Band-Aid off and gets everybody looking for it. But he's not going to do that, and he's not going to change how he does things. I mean, that's just one thing. And look, most head coaches that want to be good at they don't. There's no right or wrong answer there. I mean, the clock is not ticking on some great hire that you've got to go make, or you're not going to get him, or whatever. So that's the deal there with whatever. So, and we'll see. And there's really no circumstance where I'm going to sit here and tell anybody, despite some moronic John Edward Kruger over here acting like an idiot, saying just untruthful things about the show. There's no planet where I'm going to sit here and tell you guys that there shouldn't be any coaching changes. All right, and I don't think we all sat here and advocated for that. Any of y'all sitting here, sunshine and everything's hunky dory, and everybody should just stand pat and no changes after a 5 and 7 year and a performance like that? Anybody here? Raise your hand.
No, I mean, I think that there probably will be changes, and I think there probably should be some changes, based on what we've seen in its totality. One of the things I'll be interested to see too is what does Arkansas do? Because I know that a lot of people in our fan base are very frustrated with Coach Loggins right now, and it's fine. But Arkansas isn't. They're very fond of him. And Sam Pittman is what would y'all call this, guys? Has he been rented for one final year?
This is his last call, man. I mean, I watched their game against Missouri. John, did you catch any of that game?
Very little. Did KJ Jefferson go out in the first quarter? Did I see that?
He went out. There was a fight or two. Arkansas players just kind of gave up in front of our eyes.
It was
Missouri slaughtered them 48-14.
It was very.
That's supposed to be a rivalry, right?
The red line rivalry. It hurt to watch it. It hurt to watch it. I agree with you. Like the lack of discipline. It was almost like none of us care. We're going to do it. You know what? I'll tell you what it was. It was very similar to the fight at Clemson, because it felt like, you know what I mean? Hey, I don't even know if my coach is going to be here another year. I'm probably going to transfer anyways. Like, there's a lot of emotion going on. Nobody really running out there in that uniform. I'm not an Arkansas guy, so I couldn't tell you that, but that's what it looked like. And so I'm anxious to see what happens in Fayetteville. Are they going to start cleaning some house here? I mean, what are they doing? And how does that affect other schools? And how does that affect South Carolina? My hunch would be that it would probably affect this program in some way, shape, or form. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I think keep your eye on Arkansas and what they do. Now, do I think Dowell Loggins is going to be the guy out there? I don't know. It's just, I think a lot of times coaches are, if this were year 2 or 3, maybe. But a lot of times coaches are someplace 1 year and they don't really, it's tough to move on after a year. So we'll see sort of what happens. But yeah, I'd watch that. And if I'm Arkansas's Hunter Yurachek, I'm sitting there feeling like a fool, because you say, okay, well, we're gonna rally around the pit boss and and then the next game you have your worst game ever.
Yeah. Hey, are you one of the things that Shane has been really focused on here in hiring coaches, if there is a coach that ends up needing to be hired, is hiring guys who can recruit. John, I mean, ideally you hire a guy who can recruit and develop. But if you have to err on one side or the other right now, what is better with where this program is 3 years into his tenure?
It depends on the position for me. Like if you're a running back coach, you're hiring a recruiter more than a coach, in my opinion. On the offensive line, you've got to hire the best coach out there, in my opinion. I think it depends on the position a little bit, and your lines of scrimmage. You've got to be able to get guys ready to go and take what you have to work with and squeeze every bit of blood out of that turnip that you can get with each player. So it's great to have a Sterling Lucas, and I'm not saying Sterling Lucas is a bad coach, but Sterling Lucas, I think, is a pretty elite recruiter, and it's great to have that there at that edge position. But man, you got to have a great coach there too. You got to have a great coach with your tackles. You got to have a great coach on your offensive line. I don't know that South Carolina is going to be looking for any guys at any of those positions or not, but that's where I'm hiring coach before recruiter.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
there. Holtz or Muschamp made changes every single year. Johnny Rambo, by the way, Holtz changed 5 guys after 63-17, 6 guys, including demoting his son. So get out of here with that crap.
Yeah,
John,
it makes absolutely no sense.
Before we let you run, John, tomorrow night, it looks like it is going to be just a fantastic crowd at the Colonial Life Arena to watch them take on Notre Dame in the ACC SEC Challenge with a chance to go 6-0. And if they do go 6-0, and you look at the schedule in the month of November, the most difficult challenge they'll have is heading up the road to Clemson. But boy, it sure looks manageable to have a really spectacular non-conference before they enter SEC play. John, some quick thoughts on the Hoops guys as they get ready to get back on the floor tomorrow night.
Yeah, absolutely. $5 tickets available as well, and some decent tickets still available. A few lower levels that you can get for $5. Not many of those left, but still a few out there. I was looking at Ticketmaster earlier today just to get a sense of what the crowd would look like tomorrow night, and there are a whole heck of a lot of tickets available. No. So should be a really, really nice crowd. But it's a fun team to watch so far. They've been shooting the ball really well. They play tough defensively. They play hard. I really like what I've seen. I mean, they don't have a really difficult non-conference schedule overall, but Virginia Tech's not bad. Grand Canyon's not bad. Notre Dame's not very good, but Clemson's pretty good. They've still got a couple of decent opponents left before the start of conference play, but you're looking at having a really, really good non-conference record going into the start of non-conference play, then with a couple of tests under your belt too. So, they've responded to some challenges against Grand Canyon and Virginia Tech and come out on the right side. And they've dispatched a couple of teams very easily. And, they gutted out a win against VMI on a day when they didn't play real well. So they've won in a lot of different ways so far, and should be a lot of fun tomorrow night at the Colonial Life Arena.
Looking forward to it, no doubt. Carolina trying to stay undefeated. We'll let you run on that. Did we miss anything? Anything you need to squeeze in here? Any more former Gamecock baseball crushes we need to know about, or is that enough for today?
No, I think we've hit it all for today.
Okay, so. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll see some good info from you tonight in the VIP room with the Big Spurs. So we'll keep our eyes on that, and we'll talk next week, brother.
Yeah, a lot of hoops, some recruiting. There'll be some decent stuff in there.
I bet there will be. Thanks, John.
Brother.